A wise man once said, "A delay is not a denial." See, might have took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Might have took 6 games. Might have took 7 games. Might have took 6 losses for the Memphis Grizzlies to get on the right track. But Bismack Biyombo, Luke Kennard, Desmond Bane, Santi Aldama. So many things went right for the Grizzlies on yesterday, and the Grizzlies finally did it. They are on the win column, and now where do they go from here? Let's talk about it. Coming up right here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Going on, everyone? What's going on? And welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. And guess what? We don't have to be all down and sad today on this episode because the Grizzlies won yesterday. The Grizzlies got their first win of the season in Portland, 112-100, and there's so much to take away from that game. But before we get into that game, we got to bring you today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you go take advantage of that great opportunity at Gametime. Thank you guys again for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Make sure you continue to like, rate, comment, subscribe, all of those good things. Me and Joe Mullinax, my co-host, my partner, we pay attention, and we always trying to make the show better, improve the show for you guys going forward. Speaking of improving, I saw some signs of improvement with the Grizzlies in this last game. So many things we got to talk about. We're going to talk about Bismack Biyombo. We're going to talk about Luke Kennard. We're going to talk about Santi Aldama. But more than anything, I want to talk about the cohesion that we finally saw in this game. You may say, where am I going with that? Well, this was the first time I felt like I knew which Grizzlies players were going to come into the game, when they were going to come into the game, who was going to finish the game, because it's been a mess so far. This guy starts, this guy starts, this guy's playing rotation minutes this day, this guy's playing 5 minutes this day, 20 minutes the next day. It's been all over the place. But when the Grizzlies played the Blazers on yesterday, once we saw that Bismack Biyombo was going to get the start after Xavier Tillman Sr. Was, scratched late from the game due to left knee soreness. Once we saw that, I said, okay, makes sense. Put Bismack Biyombo in the starting lineup. Santi Aldama's back. Now you get him, in the rotation as well. Had Kenneth Lofton Jr. Give you some spot minutes there. And you had Luke Kennard. You had Jacob Gilliard give you a couple minutes as well. And then we knew John Conchar was out. So you kind of had an idea for which guys that were going to play, and I feel like that settles you in. It's different when Taylor Jenkins is kind of just going to the bench, bringing all these different guys. Jake LaRavia this day, John Conchar this day, David Roddy 20 minutes this game, David Roddy 28 minutes this game. All these different moving pieces, but what I saw in this last game was somewhere they could start in terms of building a consistent 10-man rotation. That's what the Grizzlies kind of need at this point. They need stability. That's how you build consistency, and that's how you build winning ways. This game was a struggle for a large part of it. Matter of fact, the Grizzlies were down 12 points with about a little bit less than 8 minutes left. And from that point, completely flipped the script. Grizzlies finished the game on a 23-2 run. And there's so many factors that went into that. Number one, the defense kind of stepped up. Now, I got to get into this a little bit, and some people aren't going to like what I got to say right here. But, again, we touched on it a little bit last week, and it is what it is. I know the Grizzlies, they get in trouble sometimes for over-helping and things like that. But as a basketball fan, I will ask you the simple question. Would you prefer that your player overhelped and didn't give up layups, easy layups, where teams are easily shooting over 50% from the field inside the arc? Or would you prefer that player to overhelp and give up a decent 3-point look, where most teams in the NBA are shooting, 35, 36% at the best. Most teams below that, 34%. So I get it. You don't want to give up that many three. And my thing is, you don't give up. You don't want to give up a lot of them. Like, yes, some are going to happen because certain players, you want to prevent them from driving to the basket. Like a guy like Shaedon Sharp, he gets to the rim and he's explosive. Like, you want to prevent him from getting to the basket. But at the same time, you got to protect the paint. And the Grizzlies' number one initiative when it comes to those teams is they start from inside out. Zaire Williams said it. Taylor Jenkins likes for us to protect the paint, and then we kind of work our way out. And we saw early in that game, right? Portland was making a lot of threes. Memphis was over helping. But guess what? Portland ended up shooting 14 of 45. And here's the point that I want to make to some of you with this. Yes, you gotta realize the Grizzlies ran into some hot teams. Now, Grant Williams, for example, teams are probably going to start defending him a little bit differently going for the Mavs forward, who was just hot against the Grizzlies, because he's been hot against everybody. He's been one of the best wide open shooters, in the league so far at this point of the season. But a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., who made 5 3-pointers against the Grizzlies in that Mavericks game, guess what? You play the Mavs again, make him do it again. It's either that or get Luka Doncic a drive to the basket and one-on-one coverage where your guy's either going to foul and it'd be a 3-point play, or he's going to get an easy conversion. Like, I have no problem with the way that the Grizzlies play defense, and I think this game is something that can be an example because, yes, it's boom or bust in certain ways, because there are going to be games where a team like the Mavs shoots 23 or 45 from 3-point range, but then there's also going to be games where Portland went 14 of 45, and the Grizzlies shoot 13 of 32. They shoot 41% from 3-point range, and they end up kind of with the advantage in that area. So I have no problem with the way that the Grizzlies are playing their defense right now. I think, quite frankly, the defense is ahead of the offense at this point, and that's that's kind of what we should expect. Grizzlies are a defense-first team. It's what Taylor Jenkins preaches, but they're really trying to improve the offense. And speaking of the offense, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, like we're going to talk more about them this week, because if the Grizzlies were winning, these two would be getting a little bit more attention nationally. And I think just let it play out, because Jaren Jackson Jr., 27 points, 7 boards. I got to point out that he's averaging what? I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is over 7 rebounds per game right now, and he is consistently finishing with at least 7 rebounds in games. So, credit to him. This was something that me and Joe talked about before the season, that I felt like the FIBA thing had nothing to do with what we see in the NBA. Completely different game. And he's having the best rebounding season of his career so far. And he responded from a couple games where, quite frankly, his efficiency wasn't the best. We talked about in that Jazz game, I think he shot like 5 of 17. And then he came back. Yes, the Grizzlies lost in Portland on Friday, but Jaren Jackson Jr. was 11 for 17 in that game. Then he responded with another game of 11 of 18, back-to-back games where he was, much more efficient than we saw in a game where he shot 5 of 17 and he just kept shooting 3-pointers. I think 8 of his shots were 3-point attempts in that game. How about now you get 18 shots, 4 3-point attempts, made 1. So I think that's the Jaren Jackson Jr. we want to see. And, man, I can't say enough good things about Desmond Bane at this point. I know, some people want to get into the total shooting percentage numbers. It's good, but it's not great. And he's had a couple games where, he shot 4 of 17 and things like that. But he just looks good, man. I mean, you watch Desmond Bane play right now. He's smooth. He's getting everywhere he wants to get on the floor. He's getting to the rim. He's shooting the mid-range. He's shooting the 3-pointer. Like, it's 3 levels of brilliancy. And it's the playmaking as well. It's the rebounding. I've talked a lot about how the guards have to help this team out rebounding the basketball. We saw that in this game. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists from Desmond Bane. Look, I think we see the picture here. Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. are going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for this team. There are going to be nights where Marcus Smart gives you 17, 18, 20 points. Then there's going to be games like this last one where 10 points, 5 assists on 4 of 9 shooting, where he was solid, but had some little foul trouble things. And sometimes he just doesn't shoot as much. He gets into the playmaker role and he defers a little bit more depending on the flow of the game and how teams are defending him. But at the end of the day, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, I think they've been really good in the last two games. They were very good in the game the Grizzlies lost against Portland, and they were good in the game the Grizzlies won against Portland in this last one. So you got some consistency building with those two. Man, they keep playing like this when Ja get back. This whole 0-6 talk and 1-6 talk is going to be a thing of a past. We'll be moving on to other things. But we know that Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. is good. What about all the players around him? Bismack Biyombo debuted this weekend, and then he got his first start with the Grizzlies. So we got to talk about how Bismack Biyombo kind of played in his first performance. But before we get to that, I got to talk to you about Gametime, because you need to go download the Gametime app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to take advantage of the great opportunities at Gametime. Look, man, Gametime, you go through some of these other options out here. It can be frustrating buying game tickets, and I've had people complain to me about their ticket experience and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about that with Gametime. Gametime is fast. It's easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater events, wherever you like to go. Gametime can get you in the door, and they have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, the best price guaranteed. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can find out, exactly where you're seating. They'll show you a up close and personal view from your seat. So when you buy, you'll know exactly where you are. And again, all the prices, that's your total up front. There's nothing behind the prices of Gametime. You're getting a great deal without the hidden fees. So buy the tickets in seconds with 2 taps. That's all you got to do. Tap, and you can get your ticket. Take advantage of this opportunity now. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKED on NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create an account, Locked On NBA, and download the Gametime app, because you get some last-minute tickets, and you'll get them for the lowest price guaranteed. Coming up on Locked On Grizzlies, we got to talk about Bismack. He was getting busy out there. So let's talk about it right here on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. I'm Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Some call it the most beautiful land in the world. But it's a privilege to talk to you guys today, because, man, look, it started feeling like, oh, here we go. Another loss. We got to talk about, what went wrong. But the Grizzlies kind of got a little spark plug in this game. It got multiple, and we're going to talk about a lot of them. But we got to focus on the guy who probably found out he was starting maybe less than an hour before the game, and that's Bismack Biyombo. Not only did he find out he was starting shortly before game time, he had only been on the Grizzlies 4 days up until that point. Remember, team signed him late Wednesday, was with the team Thursday. Barely played Friday, less than a minute in Friday's game. So I don't even know if we could call that a quote-unquote debut. Saturday with the team. Sunday plays against the Blazers. 26 minutes, 8 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks. So much to like from his performance. Number one thing is the rebounding, right? We've talked about the Grizzlies, how they need to be a better rebounding team. So let's get something straight with this Bismack Biyombo thing. I know, shout out to my guy Anthony Sane out there. I saw him. He was on X yesterday kind of talking about how people were concerned with Biyombo's 6'8" height. And I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but felt like we probably should have had an idea, right? I mean, Grizzlies have had players like this before, but he's 6'8", but Bismack Biyombo has a 7'7" wingspan. So that 6'8" stuff it's kind of irrelevant when you got arms as long as he is. And we saw it come into play several times. I mean, one of the better plays he made defensively was when Malcolm Brogdon had him in an isolation situation. Looked like he turned the corner, was getting ready to go up for an easy left-handed layup, and his Biyombo just he closed the gap so quick. His He gets off his feet so quick with his jumps. Real good first jump, real good second jump. And, I mean, 3 blocks. It's going to be fun to watch him and Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of operate off of each other. And he's that added element of rim protection. I know we've talked about how Xavier Tillman Sr. has done a solid job of just his defensive field goal percentage around the rim, basically not letting guys, score a lot on him in the paint. I think Bismack Biyombo gives you some of that, but he gives you that added ability with the block shots, which if you know the Grizzlies, they want to get out in transition. They want to run. They want to play in that second gear is what, Taylor Jenkins, Desmond Bane have kind of said. For them to get in that second gear, you need playmakers. You need defensive playmakers. You need guys like Marcus Smart, who's one of the NBA leaders in steals right now. You need guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., who's one of the best shot blockers in the world. And now you get another guy who is one of the best shot blockers in the world in Bismack Biyombo. So another guy who's going to create those advantages for the Grizzlies where they can get out and make those defensive plays. And we saw it in this game. But it goes further with him. The screen assists. I mean, he was everywhere. And I like to point out the fact that even when he sets screens, teams will pay attention to Bismack Biyombo when he rolls to the rim because, he's not a great offensive threat from the standpoint of, hook shots and fadeaways and turnarounds and, things like that. But he is a lob threat. Bismack Biyombo will catch some lobs for this team, and he's going to finish them. So with that being said, I look at it like Luke Kennard's last three-pointer of the game. We'll talk about Luke Kennard more later in the show, but Luke Kennard made a big three-pointer kind of during the 23-2 run. That pretty much was the icing on the cake. And I think it was Desmond Bane and Bismack Biyombo were in a pick and roll, and Biyombo rolled to the basket. I think there were 2 defenders right in front of him, but when he caught the ball, it was quick. Like, he already knew exactly where he was going. He caught the ball, swung it to the corner or to the wing to wide open Luke Kennard. And Luke Kennard was open, knocked the shot down. And I'm pointing that out to point out the playmaking. Like, playmaking wasn't something we talked about much when we were talking about the addition of Bismack Biyombo and what he can bring to the Grizzlies. But, he showed some signs. 4 assists. 8 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. I think this could be a big signing. You added the rim protection. He set some really good screens. I think he had, I don't know if it's the exact number, but I'm pretty sure he had double-digit screen assist points in his game for sure. I want to say the exact number is like 18. But he was everywhere, on both ends. And he did this with foul trouble. Like 26 minutes, I think he had 5 fouls. Still 8 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks. But more than anything, plus 18 while he was in the game. The Grizzlies were plus 18 in Bismack Biyombo's minutes. That was the best for anyone in the starting lineup. The only player who was better from a plus-minus perspective was Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard had a big game, and so did Santi Aldama in his debut. So, Bismack Biyombo made his I guess you could say it's unofficial debut since he got into the game Friday, but I'm not really counting that, man. So, Bismack Biyombo made his second appearance with the Grizzlies on Sunday, and Santi Aldama made his first appearance of the season. We got to talk about Luke Kennard and Santi Aldama because they really changed some things for the Grizzlies coming up this season, and they both played really well in his last game. But before we get to that, we got to talk about one of today's sponsors, and that's FanDuel Sportsbook. Most of you know by now, FanDuel is where you go to make every moment more. And right now, new customers, look, man, it's one of the best opportunities out there. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning a $5 money line bet. It's simple. All you got to do is click on a football game, a basketball game. College basketball is back today. So we got college basketball back in the fold. You got NFL. You got all these great sporting events going on, NHL, etc. All you got to do is find one game, make a $5 money line bet. If that team wins, $150 in bonus bets goes right to you. You just can't get better than that. But for you that haven't joined FanDuel out there, you said, you thinking about it, so I might want to get involved in this thing. Well, guess what? Let me explain it to you. The app is easy to use. You get a wide range of betting options. We just talked about the money line. You can also bet the spread, how much a team is projected to lose or win by. You could do player props, and you could project a Grizzlies player to score 10 or more points in a game. You can say, I think Desmond Bane, since he's been scoring 25 every night, I think I'm going to say Desmond Bane, 25 or more points in this game. You can also do over and unders, and FanDuel will set the lines, and you could go over or under whatever the line is set at, and much more. Most of you know, I like to do the same game parlays. That's one of my favorites. Get involved in it as well. So look, make every moment more right now. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to take advantage of this opportunity. Luke Kennard and Santi Aldama recently took advantage of their opportunities on the floor with the Grizzlies. We got to talk about how they performed in yesterday's game. Coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. Welcome back, everyone, to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Thanking you guys again for tuning in with me on today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies. We'll have Joe Mullinax back with us tomorrow. He's getting the day off. But to recap what we talked about so far, the Grizzlies got their first win. We broke down, the 23-2 run, closed it in the fourth quarter. Talked about the three-point defense a little bit because I think that game showed that, look, teams are going to get back to the mean in these three-point numbers, and the Grizzlies defense will be fine, even though they do overhelp from time to time. I'm not really concerned about that. Bismack Biyombo, his first start, 8 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks, 4 steals. Terrific performance for him. But it wasn't just Bismack Biyombo helping out the star duo. Because, again, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, I think you, most of us, we get it. We know they're going to have to be all-star caliber players for this team to win right now. They can do that. That's fine. That's not too much pressure for guys you extended to 9-figure deals. Not too much pressure. Now the question is, who's going to help them? You saw it a couple games ago, right? Because we didn't really get to recap the loss against Portland. The overtime loss, 115-113 loss. And in that game we saw Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, they were pretty good for most of that game, but didn't get much help. Well, guess what? Luke Kennard, Santi Aldama stepped up. Specifically, Luke Kennard. I mentioned how he was plus 30 in this game, and 15 points off the bench, 5 of 9 shooting, 4 of 6 3-pointers. I said it on X, and I said Luke Kennard finding his stroke is going to be so big for the Grizzlies. If Luke Kennard finds this shot, it's going to be huge for this team. Because here's the thing. Luke Kennard has led the NBA in three-point shooting percentage the last 2 seasons. Luke Kennard, when he came to the Grizzlies last year after the trade deadline, shot over 50% from three-point range. The gravity he creates, the looks he can create just from, quick pump fakes. He has a quick enough to release to kind of, because defenses pay a lot of attention to him. And that's what we've seen early on in the season. That's what we saw in the playoffs with the Lakers. Defenses will pay a lot of attention to Luke Kennard. But at the same time, he's a professional shooter. He knows what he has to do to get his shot off, how to create for himself and whatnot. But Luke Kennard was terrific in this game. I think we saw more that the Grizzlies put him in more playmaking situations, which is something that I know my co-host Joe Mullinax has talked about. We saw him dribbling the ball a little bit more, 15 points, but he had 5 rebounds and 2 assists, a couple big rebounds as well. But to go plus 30 in 32 minutes, and I remember when I gave my Grizzlies projections, right, when we were talking about minutes played and things like that, I said Ziaire Williams may start, but I still can see Luke Kennard playing more minutes over the course of a game for the Grizzlies. And Ziaire Williams, 28 minutes in this game, 6 points, 7 rebounds, 2 of 4 shooting. And so not a lot of offensive aggressiveness from him at this point. And as a result, he was the only starter that was a negative, in the plus-minus column. I think Ziaire Williams was minus 17 in 28 minutes. But Luke Kennard was huge, man. 15 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, plus 30 in 32 minutes. So he played more minutes. Than Ziaire Williams, and he was productive, in that time. So I think that's the key. You need Luke Kennard to be one of, if not your best player coming off the bench. And the other guy that you need to be really good coming off the bench right now is Santi Aldama. Stats won't wow you, but, this Locked On Grizzlies, man, we go beyond the stats sometimes. The stats say 7 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 of 8 shooting, -4 in the plus minus. 2 turnovers. No, he had 1 turnover that was just, we kind of get wild when Santi makes those no look passes and it looks cool and it leads to a Grizzly assist. But when it doesn't work, it looks bad. And he had one of those moments where he threw a ball, I think, like behind his back, and it went straight into the hands of a Blazers player, and it led to points going the other way. But this isn't just about the raw stat sheet. I'm going to go a bit deeper here because let's go through the minutes numbers here off from the bench. Luke Kennard gave you 32 minutes. Santi Aldama gave you 20. After that, 13 minutes from David Roddy, 11 minutes from Jacob Gilyard, 10 minutes from Kenneth Lofton Jr. Let's keep it real here. 13, 11, 10. Those are what I call spot minutes. That's when you get in the game, give a guy a breather. All right. We'll see you next game. It's kind of what that is. And none of those guys really were, quote unquote, bad. I really like Jacob Gilyard's, his pace, his ability to set the table for his teammates was really good. 2 assists in his 11 minutes. David Roddy had 4 points. He shot 2 of 5, +5 from the field. Kenneth Lofton Jr., I thought was really good. 5 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He had a block. He was +4 in his 10 minutes of play as well. So I don't think any of those guys were bad. But the point is, Santi Aldama is another player that Taylor Jenkins trusts to ride a little bit longer in those situations. Pause. But Santi Aldama played really well for the Grizzlies from the standpoint of 7 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and giving the Grizzlies another versatile scorer that can help this team. They'll get guys back. They're going to get more guys back, and that's going to be the key, right? We know Xavier Tillman didn't play in this game. He's going to be in the rotation. We'll see what happens with John Conchar. Derrick Rose, he should be reevaluated here soon this week. I'm sure we'll have an update on that maybe Wednesday. So he'll get reevaluated. But the rotation is going to change a little bit. But right now it looks like the Grizzlies have 8 guys, if you add Xavier Tillman, that they'll have a certainty on that can be a part of the rotation. So Santi is bringing that stability that this team needs. 7 points, 3 assists. I think going forward, he's one of those guys that you can rely on. And because of that, the Grizzlies finished this game with, 31 points off the bench. 15 of them were Luke Kennard, but you got the 7 from Aldama, 4 for Roddy, and then 5 from Kenneth Lofton Jr. 31 points from the bench. We just haven't seen that type of production from the Grizzlies this season. I think the bench hadn't outscored an opposing bench since the game against, I think it was the very first game of the season. They just haven't done it. So Luke Kennard and Santi Aldama can kind of lead the Grizzlies in the right direction there. And again, I think the theme that you should take away from this episode and just from what we're seeing around the Grizzlies now is things should start stabilizing a little bit more. Things should start stabilizing. I think now we're starting to see that Santi Aldama, Luke Kennard, Xavier Tillman Sr., Bismack Biyombo, Jaren Jackson Jr., you got your 4 guys that you're going to play pretty much at power forward and center now. So you don't have to go to those small ball lineups unless you want to. You don't have to play Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5 that much anymore unless you want to in certain stretches. It doesn't have – basically giving Grizzlies more options to do things when they want to rather than out of necessity. So the Grizzlies got their first win. I can't wait to talk to you guys on tomorrow because we got a lot to talk about still just from that game and just on the outlook of the Grizzlies going forward. Joe Molinax will be back with me for that edition. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies on today. Make sure you tune in with us on tomorrow as well. As I said, Joe Molinax will be back with me, and we'll have a lot to talk about as we continue to track the process of the Grizzlies and the progress that this team is making. But thank you again for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts. I'm Damichael Cole. I'll see you next time on Locked On Grizzlies.